So when I first heard of this, I originally planned on having this be my first Titan. I wanted to hold off getting any other figures in this size class. No Omega Supremes, no Metroplexes, no Trypticons, and have the Arc be my introduction to figures in this scale. I had so many hopes for this thing. I wanted it to be big and cool, well built, with a high level of posability, and most of all, I wanted it to be Vigilum. So sad to say, this is kind of the exact opposite of everything I wanted it to be. And had this been my first, I probably would never have been excited to see another Titan. Before I did it, I didn't think I was going to write a sentence that negative. Man, this is depressing. Let's just go through it. First up, let me try to give this at least one positive word. I had heard that this was going to be noticeably smaller than the Omega Supreme, but I'm not seeing it. They basically stand the exact same height. Unless they are counting his wings as part of his actual height, at which point, idiots, then this was actually made just a little bigger than when it was first announced. Though I did weigh them because this is noticeably a lot less heavy than Omega, and I found that it's 3/4 of a pound less dense. So that's a tad concerning, but onto the stuff that actually matters. The look of this thing is just awful. It's everything I feared it would be when the first leaks that there was a Titan arc planned for Kingdom initially dropped. The waspish waist, the skinny joints, the deep ravines, the all too huge components of the alt mode left unmolested, just cluttering up the whole thing with the heinous gaps and clearly visible hollowness. This is the least creative thing they could have come up with. It's exactly what I pictured in my head the worst possible outcome being. Had I drawn a picture back when the leaks happened of what I was afraid this thing looking like, you'd have all called me a prophet. This has all the hallmarks of the awful old Star Wars crossover figures, and it just reeks of someone who didn't want the job designing this in the first place. That, or they just hired the same hack who did those old Star Wars figures to work their particular brand of non-magic for this thing too. He doesn't look like a robot that is the Arc, he looks like a robot that is wearing the Arc, like he ripped it apart and put it on as suboptimal armor. All of his body is just so skinny because they wanted it to fit inside the shell of the ship. They didn't want it to become the ship, they wanted a robot that just stuffs itself inside it. I can't even begin to tell you how uncool this thing looks to me. I really hoped I would like this better once I got it in hand. Why did they fake having giant pins in the tops of his hips? Why are his hips just bracketed off his body like the complete afterthought they are? Why does he have the Isaac Clarke as drawn by a fetish artist waist? I will give them some credit on the automatically filling gap covers on the backs of his legs and arms. Those could have looked a lot worse. But then they went and squandered all the goodwill they just earned with these hands. Oh my god, do I hate these hands! They're so creepy and weird and curved. They're too naturally shaped. They look like something that belongs on Transmutate. And then the posability is a wretched joke. All 4 fingers are on one joint, and the thumb is also on one joint. Congratulations, you idiots! The result is this is the best fist this ugly bastard can make. It doesn't look good grabbing, it doesn't look good threatening, it can't point, it can't thumbs up. The only thing this looks tolerable doing is being relaxed. And it's gappy as shit! What is this ugly hole for? There's no pin here, and it looks like something they planned to cover up. Seriously, no up or down at the thumb, no secondary knuckle in the fingers to get a tighter fist. Omega Supreme had a claw for a hand, and it poses like a dozen times better than this thing, and it looks less freaky too. I would say thank goodness that these aren't actually pinned, so an upgrade kit will have an easier time replacing these, but let's be honest, they should probably just replace the whole hands. Also, the thumb is longer than his fingers. How do you fuck up how long the thumbs are supposed to be? And then there are just so many angles where you can see up into this guy where you clearly weren't supposed to see. And why does his chest flap not allow you to push it in further? It's specifically designed to not allow you to do that. It intentionally blocks you from hiding that gap and gaining a cooler physique. I guess so you can keep his little buddy, who we will get to later, in his chest while in robot mode? Oh wait, nope, that does not in fact work. So we are back to why then? Why is it like this? I mean, it kind of fits, but it sticks out just a little further, and honestly, I'm worried about breaking the clear plastic globe off this thing. Does it have kind of a messed up Autobot symbol on its crotch? That's not just me who sees that, right? The shins are almost interesting, to the point where I'd give them credit for coming up with an original idea if I wasn't so sure this was actually an accident in the design. They are the best painted part of the whole figure though, with the rest of this thing being pretty lackluster. It's got a fair number of accent parts, but the vast majority of him is just boring looking unpainted orange plastic. It's not even the right color orange. And whose bright idea were the shoulder smudges? I mean, they're well done, but what are they supposed to be? Do like those shins though, the multi-toned paint gives them an almost translucent feel, and the feet are a no shits given affair. Also, this thing is not as sturdy as the Omega Supreme. The plastic here is a lot thinner with a lot more flex and play. It doesn't feel anywhere near as good to the touch. And, like, all the ratchets on this thing are awful, both in feel and in sound. They're honestly too strong, too. You kind of need to decide that you are going to move them, and then really go for it and commit to get the part where you want to go. I think these ratchets are going to wear out in very short order. And then you have the head, and I fucking hate this thing. It's so ugly, it looks like Serge Tankian wearing MF Doom's mask. He's got a creepy little mouth slit filled with blue chiclet teeth, and the way to, actually really that's what they are, eyebrows. And this is so ugly to be a reference to the last 4 issues of the G1 comic that no one read, and you know how I know no one read it? because it was the last 4 issues due to the comic going out of print because of low sales because people weren't reading it. Were the comic still popular, they wouldn't have stopped running it. Some of you are very confused as to why I complain that this is an obscure comic character like the last Autobot, and yet I am offended that it's not Vigilim, an obscure comic character. Well, there's several reasons. For starters, Vigilim is a lot less obscure than you might think he is. I mean, he's in popular comics that are being printed right now, and not from 30 years ago. He's massively important to the current IDW continuity, basically being the individual who kicked off the whole Autobot-Decepticon war. And he was hugely important in the previous continuity as well. So he's a ton more relevant than the last Autobot ever was. But much more importantly, there would be so much story just baked into this figure if it was Vigilim. As the last Autobot, it's, oh, that's a deep cut lore reference, or, oh, I guess that's what the last Autobot turns into. But as Vigilim, it's a villain who's been turned into the Autobots' escape vessel. There's just so much story potential there. It brings into question how that happened, and how did the Autobots wrangle him into their ship? Do they realize that's who it is? Are they doing this as punishment for his crimes? Is he really unconscious? Will he wake up and turn the Autobots' salvation against them? Does he have other goals? Does he still work for Liege Maximo or the Decepticons? The possibilities are vast, and they make the imagination flow over. But I can't hold that against this thing. I mean, I really wanted to see that, but it's not this figure's fault the creator didn't have my imagination. What I do hold against this thing, though, is the shitty light piping. How did Omega Supreme do such an amazing job with his when his light receptor was like 1/4 the size of this and much better hidden? I find that this thing's eyes are pretty dead in most situations. So hey, for the first time in a while, I get to do what I was born to do and hate light piping. So I can be thankful to this figure for that at least. So this is a bad head. Well, I think it's pretty goddamn ugly, but this is more on the subjective end. You might like this, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. Still, I hate this. As for accessories, this guy might come with stuff that's actually better than he is. For starters, he comes with Mainframe, who's kind of a triple changer? Kind of. He forms the Bridge of the Arc, which apparently has 2 Teletran 1s. I mean, for the most part, it's kind of bullshit, but at the same time, it's still pretty cool. Then he's got his robot mode, and this is a pretty acceptable little guy. He's not the most posable thing in the world, and he's kind of the wrong color, plus his arm flaps really get in the way, but you know what? He's big, he's nice and heavy, he's well toleranced, except for the head, which is so loose I can get it to spin 360 with a flick, and his arms pop off their mushroom pegs with, like, no effort. His transformation is pretty simple, and he's very much a shell former, and one that's only, like, crucified behind his shell rather than inside it, so from most angles, it's pretty not convincing at all. While running through the process, you also find that he's got the little scouting drone that scans the alt modes for the characters in the first season. So this is awesome. And when it's all said and done, he makes a pretty awesome little Teletran 1. I'm pretty thrilled with how this turned out. All his screens have cool details on him, it's well painted, and it's just kind of everything I could have wanted. But we aren't done yet. There's also the world's smallest Optimus Prime, and that interacts with the bridge scene on his back, so that's cool. Also, this has 2 sets of the Jetfire blast effects in a soft as dick bluish-green rubber. I guess to be used with the thrusters, but you guys know this thing has 4 thrusters, right? These things are way too soft, to the point where it kind of makes them irritating to use. And then this comes with the 2 golden discs from Beast Wars. You got the real-life Sounds of Earth one. I already had a version of this that came with the Masterpiece Dinobot, but this is cool to get, and it means that others will have a whack at it too. And the one I'm really excited about, the Alien disc. This is something I don't have some version of, and it's cool to finally get a good look at the alien symbols in the flesh. Like the trap symbol, and the scribble symbol, and the Egypt symbol. But there's a problem. Oh, you fucking assholes, what the hell is this? The alien disc was mirrored! Both sides were the same! It sure as hell wasn't one of the Voyager records! Why the hell does it say the Sounds of Earth on the back? Were you somehow too lazy to make both sides the same? Or did you just not pay enough attention to the show to realize that these weren't the same disc? All logic screams at me that this was a manufacturing error. All cynicism screams at me that they're idiots. Whatever, it's still cool. Posability on this thing is not as good as it should have been, but in general, it's better than average, except for in one place that's just inexcusable. The head only swivels. Omega Supreme had a head that could tilt up and down. Titan's Return figures had heads that could tilt up and down. Legends Class Soundwave had a head that could tilt up and down. This thing, with a head as big as that Soundwave, cannot tilt its head up and down. I don't even have the energy to yell about this, you lazy sons of bitches. Shoulders on this have some intense, unpleasant ratchets that go well beyond a 90. Going forward, they are even more awful sounding, by the way. No butterfly, more than a 90-degree elbow, even more if you go off to the side. Awful hands with insane ratchets. It does have sword-wielding wrists, though. Good luck getting a sword for this and having it hold it. A waist, which I bring up because if he doesn't have a neck, he could easily not have a waist. Legs have all of the kick in all of the directions. Pretty maximum knees, and feet with an absolute baby level of tilt that's just held by friction. So yeah, the limbs have a pretty good amount of range, but the lack of a tilt on the neck is just inexcusable, and there aren't any specialty joints on this figure. I mean, come on, it's big enough and simple enough that it could have fit them. Transformation on this is actually kind of nice. It's not the best, and it's sure not clever at all, except for kind of how the shoulders work and the way the auto panels work, but it's fun enough, it's pretty good. Though, a lot of the locking tabs do not hold on this thing at all. And here we have the thing that it kind of feels like is all it wanted to be. The Arc mode is pretty stellar. I can kind of see myself recommending this on the strength of the Arc mode alone. This is kind of the reason to want this, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's mostly a brick, and it could stand with some paint, say on the Space Needle back here, but it's got a spring-loaded ramp and the blast effects do allow this thing to blast off. Plus, it's got some no-joke landing gear that are easy to get out. I actually find myself pretty happily whooshing this thing around. It's honestly great. I like the ship mode. It's something the fandom has basically always lacked. Though there is one huge problem here, well, two. This thing is covered in infinity billion guns and none of these rotate. Seriously, Hasbro, you fucking lazy bastards, you cannot be real with this. These were clearly inserted after the fact from below. Every last one of these has an ugly cutout where the barrels were made to come through. But no, these can't rotate. I feel like it would have taken effort to design these so they enter that way, but don't rotate. How did Hasbro not do this? Also, they aren't designed to use the blast effects because fuck you, I guess. Oh, headache. Also, you couldn't close up these huge gaps in the side. You had one job, and you got so lazy on us. When people said they wanted the Titan-class Arc to just be a ship that can open up with rooms in it that you can put figures into, I didn't like that idea. Now I'd say that was the better option. I honestly did not expect this to turn out as negatively as it did. I kind of didn't realize how much I hated looking at this thing until I sat down to write the review. And here's the crazy thing. If you want an Arc, I kind of still recommend this. It's an Arc, it does a good job at being the Arc, and if someone else were to make an Arc, it'd probably be about this expensive. So, if you just treat it as an Arc, it's filling a gap nothing else is, and it comes with the bonus of having an ugly robot inside of it. And a lot of my dislike of this thing stems from how truly ugly I find this robot mode to be, but not everyone is going to feel the same way about how this looks. So, for you, ugly robot may be all pro and no con. It has a fun transformation, and the stuff it comes with is all pretty fantastic. It's also got, like, a full-blown Teletran 1, which is something almost all of us need with no other options on how to acquire. So, this is a weird end result for me. I have, like, nothing good to say about the robot mode, but I come away from this giving the thumbs up. Like, I flat out hate its robot mode, but at the same time, I totally see its value, as everything else it comes with is worth recommending, and I think you'll probably be very happy with it if you get one. So, it's not so much that the good outweighs the bad, so much as the bad didn't matter to the good in the first place. I'm confused by this video too. So yeah, if you want one, I actually say go for it. Hope this shocks you, because it shocks me. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.